Incoming message.
Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're opening a digital case file on one of the most chilling, mind-bending correlations recently discovered in anomaly research. I'm going to ask you to put your investigator hats on for this one, because we are diving into raw evidence that's going to challenge literally everything you thought you knew about the world's most famous elusive creature. Most people watching footage of this phenomenon, they're looking for muscle mass, stride length, biological markers. But today, we're investigating a hidden anomaly in recent footage that completely flipped the narrative.
So let's get right into it. Historically, almost everyone focuses entirely on the bipedal figure, right? But for the last 3 years, something else has been hiding right there in plain sight within the footage. A glowing, completely unexplained anomaly. And the crazy part? Almost nobody has been talking about it. Every researcher, every documentary, they usually just stop at the creature. But the mystery goes so much deeper than that.
We literally have to shift our entire analytical framework here. We've got to stop looking at Bigfoot exclusively as this, biological earth creature that just naturally evolved out in the dense forests of North America. If we're going to follow the data objectively, we have to start investigating this recurring, unexplained glowing sphere. That traditional focus, it's blinded us to the actual environmental context of these sightings. By shifting our focus to the orb, we start uncovering a completely different type of mystery, one that's way more mechanical and, honestly, a lot more terrifying.
Let's move to Section 1, the 3 case files. Documented orb interventions. Now, as any good investigator will tell you, a single anomaly is a curiosity, but a recurring anomaly? That's a pattern. Just look at how rapidly this specific event has emerged across the North American continent in just the last few years alone. 2023, 2024, and 2026. These aren't some grainy, questionable accounts from the 1970s. These are modern, digitally captured events. We're tracking a phenomenon that is actively happening right now, moving from the Pacific Northwest up into Canada and straight down into the American Midwest. When we lay out these distinct micro-thrillers side by side, the sequence completely stops looking random. We've got a stationary orb followed by a vanishing figure in Washington. We've got an orb followed by physical footprints in Ontario. And we've got an auditory trigger resulting in both an orb and a figure in the Ozarks. It's a behavioral pattern. Let's break these down one by one. In our first case file from Washington State in 2023, an automated trail cam captured a massive bipedal figure crossing a clearing. But the true evidence was actually in the upper right corner of the frame, a stationary, glowing sphere. And the duration is what's absolutely critical here. It just hung there for 4 solid minutes. Then the sphere disappears. And within 30 seconds of that sphere vanishing, the bipedal figure also completely disappears from the area. That strict correlation in their exit is our first major clue. Moving over to Case 2, Northern Ontario in 2024. A hunter is out near a riverbank, and he actually films this glowing orb hovering over the terrain. And to be clear, this isn't swamp gas. It's not a lens flare or reflection. It's a distinct, localized light source. But the real breakthrough happened the very next morning. Exactly 40 feet from where that orb was hovering over the mud, the hunter discovered massive, fresh, Bigfoot-type footprints. Think about that. We have physical, biological-seeming evidence left behind, mere steps from an unexplained aerial anomaly. And that brings us to the absolute most chilling piece of evidence on record, Case 3, from June 2026 down in the Ozarks of Missouri. A researcher's out in the field doing a call blast, broadcasting a super loud recorded vocalization into the woods to attract a Sasquatch. But the response wasn't just a creature walking out of the brush. That call blast triggered an immediate glowing orb appearing right there in the tree line. And only after the orb appeared did the large figure emerge. When the researcher actually moved toward them, the orb rose into the air and vanished, while the figure immediately retreated back into the forest. It was a simultaneous, highly coordinated reaction happening in real time. All right, on to Section 2, the geographic correlation. Let's connect the data. Up to this point, we've only been looking at localized footage. But to truly grasp the scale of what's happening, we have to look at the Pentagon UAP database. Partially declassified back in 2023, this is a highly sophisticated federal repository. It basically tracks and maps high-intensity unidentified aerial phenomena. It's looking for clusters. It maps exactly where the unexplained is happening in our skies, and all of it is heavily vetted by military and government sensors. So let's take that federal aerial data and compare it strictly with cryptozoology. If we plot out decades of ground encounters across North America to find the absolute highest concentrations of Bigfoot sightings, we end up with 3 primary hot zones: the Pacific Northwest, northern Canada, and the Ozark Mountains. Hold on. Those are the exact 3 regions from our orb case files. And here is the terrifying twist in our investigation. When you overlay the maps, they are identical. The Pentagon's officially recognized UAP sighting clusters and the historical Bigfoot hotspots share the exact same geographic coordinates. We are looking at a literal 1-to-1 geographic correlation between unidentified craft in the sky and giant bipedal figures on the ground.
Just let that sink in for a second. This is not some weird coincidence in the data. These are the exact same coordinates. The mathematical probability of the federal government's UAP hot zones perfectly matching the forestry data for Bigfoot sightings by pure chance? It's practically zero. This God's eye view of the overlapping data absolutely proves we can no longer view these creatures as just local wildlife out foraging for berries. The sky and the ground are inextricably linked. Which leads us perfectly into Section 3, the landing zone theory, the transport mechanism. So, if these beings aren't naturally evolving in isolation out in the woods, we desperately need a radically new theory for how they actually arrive. And this is exactly where we have to reevaluate the orb. The evidence strongly points to the orb acting as a highly advanced functional tool. Based on that footage where the orb appears right before the creature and disappears right as the creature retreats, researchers are heavily scrutinizing what it actually does. Is it a localized portal? Is it some sort of condensed craft or vehicle? Or maybe it's an energy field enabling a physical transition between wherever these creatures actually originate and our physical space. In all these scenarios, the orb is acting as the transport mechanism. This completely, fundamentally shifts our paradigm. When investigators go deep into the Pacific Northwest or the Ozarks, they genuinely believe they're walking into a creature's permanent habitat. But if the orb protocol is real, these dense woods are merely drop-off points. They're just secluded, highly concealed environments being utilized by whatever is piloting or controlling these glowing spheres. The forest isn't their home. It's a strategically chosen landing zone. And that brings us to what investigators are now calling the arrival protocol. Think back to Case 3 and the Ozarks. The sequence is practically mechanical. Step 1, the researcher broadcasts a call blast vocalization. Step 2, the glowing orb instantly appears. Step 3, the bipedal figure emerges. This implies that researchers out there in the woods aren't just making mating calls to attract a curious animal. They might actually be broadcasting an audio frequency that mechanically triggers a localized landing sequence. They are literally turning the key in a door they do not understand. The Ozarks footage is real. The geographic correlation between UAP clusters and ground encounters is federally documented, and the orb has now appeared 3 distinct times in verified modern footage. We've laid out the case files in this explainer, and what you do with this information is entirely up to you. But as we close out this investigation, I'll leave you with this one final crucial thought. The next time you're out in the deep woods and someone triggers a call blast, watch the sky, not the tree line.